Recording, I see recording has started.
Recording has begun. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. This is the June 16, 2026 regular meeting of the Complaint Committee of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force of the City and County of San Francisco. The time is 5:48 p.m. The Sunshine Ordinance Task Force and its committees convene in hybrid meetings that allow for either in-person attendance or remote participation. Public comment will be taken on each item of the agenda. Meeting decorum. Any member of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force Complaint Committee may call for decorum due to the disorderly conduct of meeting participants. Persons who engage in threatening and/or menacing behavior may be asked to leave. A reminder, please, for members of the community who have joined us online via telephone or the WebEx platform. Please note that the WebEx platform, it does have a chat option, but we are not using it. We're not using it because people who have joined us live in the room or are joining us by telephone can't see what you're writing. We are not using the chat function in WebEx. Chair Schmidt, that completes my announcements.
All right, let's go on to number one.
Item 1, call to order, roll call, and agenda changes. Calling the roll, Chair Schmidt.
Present.
Chair Schmidt, present. Vice Chair Stein. Vice Chair Stein, present. Member Sugarman. Member Sugarman, absent. Member Kumar.
Present.
Member Kumar, present. 3 present, 1 absent. We have a quorum. Item 2. Oh, and we have no known changes to the agenda. Item 2, approval of the May 19, 2026 Sunshine Ordinance Task Force Complaint Committee regular meeting minutes.
Okay, members, any changes? We don't have any changes. I'm not sure if we have to follow the new rule where public comment comes before making motions.
We can call for public comment.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Anyone wishing to make public comment on item 2? We have no one in the room, but members of the online community, if you would like to speak on item 2, please raise your hand in the app or press *3. I'll give you a moment. We have no one in the room, 1 hand raised. Mr. Philpell, do you wish to make public comment on item 2? Apologies for that. You've been unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. It's Member Philpell. There was no opportunity for public comment on item 1. I was going to say I don't know if item 7 was supposed to refer to section 67.30 because section 67.3 only contains definitions. Perhaps the committee can decide how to proceed when you get to item 7 tonight, and that I'm available to observe or participate at the discretion of the chair. I do have comments on items 2 and 6. So continuing on to comments on item 2 regarding the minutes. Please see items 2 and 6 regarding public comment on the minutes. If there was none, perhaps I would insert the word none. Also, items 12 and 13 might refer to public comment if it was taken, and if there was none, to so indicate. Items 5 and 8 are missing the names of those members voting in favor. Items 9 and 10 either have the wrong vote or the minutes do not reflect the temporary absence of Member Kumar. Something should be changed, in my view, on items 9 and 10 to reflect what actually occurred. Those are my comments on items 1 and 2. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anything, members? Yes, Member Kumar. Oh, go ahead.
Another commenter. Hello, caller. Did you wish to make public comment on item 2? Caller, you've been unmuted. We have no other hands raised.
Okay, Member Kumar.
I just wanted to say, for the bit that Member Purple mentioned that I was absent, I had informed the chair that I had an important call from home. My grandmother was unwell. My mom had called me to inform that, and I'd stepped out for literally less than 5 minutes. And within that, the two items were discussed and voted upon because there was a quorum. So I honestly don't think that should be put in. I'm not comfortable talking about why I walked out. It was a emergency. I couldn't avoid that phone call.
I would say there's no reason why we have to state any reason why you were not on the vote. As long as we had quorum otherwise. So we can reflect that you were not voting. If you wanted to say you were not present for the vote, or you just didn't vote, we probably should say you weren't present to vote on those matters, because we can't say you didn't vote because I think there's a rule that says you have to vote. No abstentions. So for those items, if it's agreeable to you, let's just say you weren't present to vote.
Yes, I agree with you, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. There were a lot of changes that Member Pilpel suggested, and it seems to me that they all sounded fine to me. If there's a way that we feel confident that voting with the proviso that all those changes be made is going to, we could vote to approve with those changes, or we could just hold this over. We could continue this.
I can state that I will check the transcript and make the changes according to the transcript,
Okay.
the audio transcript.
Yeah, we could continue it or we could vote on it. I'm pretty open on that. Yes, Member
Yeah,
Flynn.
I think a lot of the substantive things were just inconsistencies in how material was presented. Like, if it says 4 ayes, we're only 4 on the committee, so you kind of know who it is, but most of the listings give all the names. So that, should be there. And then public comment, none, if there was no public comment, which I think was probably the case in all the places where it doesn't say public comment. So if those things can just be cleaned up a little bit, I would be for making a motion to approve these minutes with the suggested changes.
I second that.
Moved by Vice Chair Stein, seconded by Member Kumar to approve the minutes with the proviso that Administrator Peterson will correct the minutes as stated in the audio recordings. Taking the vote. Vice Chair Stein.
Aye.
Vice Chair Stein, aye. Member Kumar.
Aye.
Member Kumar, aye. Member Sugarman absent. Chair Schmidt.
Aye.
Chair Schmidt, aye. 3 ayes, 1 absent, motion passes. Item number 3, public comment. Members of the public may address the committee on matters that are within the committee's jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda. If you wish to make public comment and you are in the online community, please raise your hand in the app or press *3. I'll give you a moment. There's no one in the room, no hands raised.
Okay, so let's, I think we're ready to move on to number 4.
One moment, please. Thank you, everyone, for waiting. Item number 4, file number 26069. Complaint filed by Anonymous against Supervisor Mirna Melgar for allegedly violating Administrative Code Sunshine Ordinance, Section 67.15, by failing to allow public criticism of the policy, procedures, programs, or services of the city. Petitioner, are you present? Please indicate where you are by raising your hand in the app or press *3. Hello, caller. Are you petitioner for item number 4?
I am.
Thank you. One moment, please. Promoting you to panelist, you'll be able to mute and unmute your microphone by yourself. Chair Schmidt, we understand that respondent is in the building. One moment, please, while I confirm their location.
Yeah, they will be there momentarily.
Thank you. Momentarily, okay, we'll hold. Chair Schmidt, we have respondent in the room for item number 4. Would you like to proceed?
All right, let me just set out the rules on the 2 cases. We only have 2 cases today. So, but the rules are that we start by hearing from each party. First, the petitioner, and following the petitioner, the respondent side. Up to 3 minutes, tell us what you think is important that we hear about the case, having in mind that we've already had access to the file and we've generally read through the files. After that, the members of the committee may or may not have questions for the parties. And then when that question and answer session seems to have concluded, we'll start to deliberate, figure out what we think should happen with the matter. Now, we will consider, we consider 2 preliminary questions, which is there a jurisdictional issue, a jurisdictional problem? Do we have clearly have jurisdiction? We look at that issue. We look at whether a case involves public records, public meetings, which is basically the subject of the Sunshine Ordinance and also the state laws that we have jurisdiction over. We will often send a case to be heard before the entire task force, which is an 11-member task force. Here, we really don't make any final decisions on the merits, but we may make recommendations for how the task force, we think the task force may want to act on a matter. And I think that's everything about the process. So when our administrator is ready, we can hear first from the petitioner.
3 minutes. How much time, please?
Yes, 3.
Thank you. Petitioner, are you ready for your 3 minutes to begin?
Yes, I am.
You'll hear a soft tone 30 seconds before your time ends. Your time begins now.
Sure. Good evening, committee members. In your packet, my arguments begin on page 9. So my argument today is that the Board of Supervisors maintains a decorum policy in their rules of order that, according to a mountain of past precedent, violates federal law, the State Brown Act, and our local Sunshine Ordinance. It requires that attendees of meetings direct all comments to the committee on the whole rather than one individual supervisor. On April 20th, Chair Myrna Melgar not only used this rule to chill robust debate, but did so selectively, allowing positive comments and engaged in viewpoint discrimination. So under the First Amendment, the Brown Act, and the Sunshine Ordinance, it is completely lawful to criticize a public official by name during public comment. In fact, many years ago, Orange County had to settle with the ACLU for $75,000 regarding their Rule 46, which was an identically phrased decorum rule. So even if I had named a committee member to criticize them, my speech would be fully protected. But I will make the argument tonight that the facts are even more absurd. I was public commenter number 2 in your packet. I did not even say a name. I said our supervisor proudly claimed that there is no daylight between him and Scott Wiener on housing. Chair Melgar immediately cut me off. To make it worse, the supervisor I was referencing is not even a member of the committee. He was present as a guest. So the chair weaponized an internal rule that shouldn't even exist to protect her own sponsored legislation and a visiting colleague from his own constituents' policy critique. The clerk of the board's defense, which you'll hear next, claims that the chair was neutrally enforcing board rule 4.22. Yet they also admit in that response that they allowed another speaker, Griffin Lee, to address the supervisor directly and that he only thanked them. But if you look at the transcript, it says, "So thanks Supervisor Dorsey for making this amendment." He praised the visiting supervisor by name and then said he wanted to work with him further. I critiqued a policy without a name and I was forced to censor my political speech. That is just textbook viewpoint discrimination. I will also, this is not in the packet, but I found it afterward. The task force has already ruled on this exact same fact pattern. So if you need to write it down, file number 16101. 16101 was Petralis versus the Police Commission, and the task force found unanimously that interrupting a speaker to enforce and address the body rule forced them to amend and abridge their comment. It violated 67.15D, and the order of determination recommended that that rule be stricken from the rules of order entirely. But we're not talking about the Police Commission, we're talking about our Board of Supervisors. Lastly,
Thank you, Petitioner.
I'll let him conclude. Yes.
I just wanted to say that our ordinances and state law trump individual policies at the board level. A policy does not override the Brown Act. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you. We have present for respondent, Deputy Director Elisa Samara. Are you ready for your 3 minutes?
All right. Hello.
Time begins now.
Thank you, Chair Schmidt, members of the Complaint Committee. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm here as a representative from the Office of the Clerk of the Board who's attending on behalf of Supervisor Melgar. The complaint, as you guys have already heard, you guys have had it summarized already. California Government Code, the Brown Act, provides a providing member to regulate those disrupting a meeting, while as the complainant just indicated that, state law does trump. The state law does state that disrupting includes failure to comply with reasonable and lawful regulations adopted by the legislative body. Rule 4.22 is a reasonable and lawful regulation adopted by the Board of Supervisors. So the remarks, as you guys have already stated, Rule 4.22 states remarks shall be addressed to the board as a whole, not to individual supervisors and not to the audience. While the Brown Act and Sunshine obviously allow public criticism of policy and procedures, our board rule does prohibit a public commenter from addressing individual supervisors. They are instructed on a regular basis during our board and committee meetings to address the body as a whole. I will also state that the public commenters that the complainant referenced in the committee, the complainants where I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. The complainant referred to the public commenters, Anna Herrera and Griffin Lee, as the one that Chair Melgar ended up allowing public comment to, or positive comments to be made. Anna Herrera is actually a District 9 representative, so she was not part of public comment. She was there to represent District 9. Griffin Lee, as the complainant indicated, thanked the supervisor, but those weren't remarks beyond a thank you addressed to Supervisor Dorsey. Taking into consideration all of these, and the Office of the Clerk of the Board's regular enforcement of Board Rule 4.22 in order to conduct business and keep decorum in the rule. We do not believe that Chair Melgar engaged in discriminatory application of the Brown Act, of the Sunshine Ordinance, nor the Board Rule 4.22. She used it appropriately and evenly in the manner allowable. I'm here for any questions you might have.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Members, any questions for either of the parties? Yes, Member Stein.
I have a few questions for Ms. Sonia. Can you tell us anything about Can you tell us anything about the reason for Rule 4.22? When was it implemented? What problem is it addressing?
My apologies. I would have to go back. I can get back to you guys on when that rule was incorporated into the board rules. The purpose of the board rule 4.22 is to keep decorum in the room. When members of the public are addressing the board, they're addressing the board as a body. Individual supervisors do not have authority as an individual. The body acts as a whole. So when anybody is petitioning a body, they should be addressing them as a whole, because one individual supervisor is only a single vote. So as there are concerns or things they want to bring up, it's okay to speak about maybe certain policies, but you can't address an individual member, because it is not a discussion between an individual member and a public commenter. There is no discussion there.
Okay, and do you have any thoughts about how Rule 4.22 comports with the Sunshine Ordinance, Section 67.15D, which says that a policy body shall not abridge or prohibit public criticism on any basis other than reasonable time constraints?
I'm sorry, I don't have that rule, that section in front of me. Can you repeat that one more time?
It says, I'm kind of truncating it a little bit.
Okay.
It says a policy body shall not abridge or prohibit public criticism on any basis other than reasonable time constraints. Can you tell me how this Rule 4.22 comports with that, or fits with that, or
Board Rule 2.
why it doesn't apply, why that wouldn't apply to it?
Board Rule 4.22 is not there to abridge anybody's public comment or their feelings or how they are addressing the policy itself. It's how they are engaging with the supervisors. Public comment is not an opportunity for them to address individual members or get into a back and forth. We even have a board rule that states supervisors are not even allowed to, if a commenter asks a question, they're not allowed to, respond to them, because this is not a discussion period. It is a time for members of the public to provide their comments, their concerns, their issues with policies that are before the body as a whole to consider.
Okay, and then my last question is, how is a public comment thanking Supervisor Dorsey different from one that's criticizing him?
Well, I was just, in the memo, we were just pointing out that the comment that they are pointing to was a thank you. It wasn't necessarily comments around policies and that individual supervisor. It was a thank you. And unfortunately, there may be some things, a thank you that, a presiding officer may not, catch or may not zero in on. But that's not necessarily, engaging with the supervisor.
Okay, those were all my questions.
All right, Member Kumar.
This is for the petitioner. So when I went through the conversation, what I did notice was you were warned a couple of times. So was there any point in that where you were warned and you were cut off, or was it like you were just continuously warned while you were speaking? Because I can't tell, right? Like, I'm just trying to understand how the flow of the conversation went. Like, were you speaking in one go and they were interrupting you multiple times?
Yes. So I will point you all to page 10 of your packet. I was public commenter number 2. So I said the phrase that I said in my opening comment, which is our supervisor proudly claimed. Chair Melgar interrupted me and said, I'm sorry. I'm going to stop you again because this happened during public comment. And what she meant was earlier. Please refrain from targeting your comments to a specific supervisor and speak to the committee as a whole. Again, I did not even say a person's name. And I responded, I re-began my comment and I said, so we're discussing policy for my district. There is no way to address policy in my district. And again, she interrupted me a second time and said, no, there is, without singling out a specific person. Just be respectful and follow the rules. Now, I appreciate the citation of the Sunshine Ordinance, and it was a little bit abridged. But the sentence before, shall not abridge public criticism on any basis other than reasonable time constraint, which means you can only abridge based on time. You know, the words just before that are also on the basis that the performance of one or more public employees is implicated. And so this is held in the Brown Act. This is held in the Sunshine Ordinance. Both supersede our rule, and that is why other cities have been sued for the same one. I'm actually shocked that it's still on the books. I'm shocked that they're enforcing it, and I'm shocked that their office does not know the text of the Sunshine Ordinance.
Yeah, thank you so much. I have a question for the supervisor's office. Hi. So I just want to know, is there a particular time limit for which I've never attended one of your meetings, so just for my curiosity, say I'm a public commenter, how much time do I get to speak before someone interrupts me or has to interrupt me?
Well, overall, normally get about 2 minutes, give or take. Could be one sometimes if it's a large crowd. But are you're talking about like an interruption to redirect somebody's comments?
Yeah, like say if we have a public comment in the Sunshine Task Force, usually the person gets to speak for 3 minutes. We usually don't interrupt unless it's something extreme. So do you have something like that in place in your department?
We do, well, we do enforce Board Rule 4.22, so that if a public commenter is speaking and we do enforce, we may pause the time and redirect their comments. The Brown Act does provide the authority for the presiding officer to do that.
And just for my understanding, why did you not interrupt the first public commenter? Because they were also, speaking about the same person. Like,
That was Chair Melgar's Chair Melgar was the one. I'm actually here on behalf of the Office of the Clerk of the Board. I can't speak on behalf of Chair Melgar on her handling of the first commenter. I think it's you guys were just referencing. I'm not sure which one that was.
So I over here on I see the first commenter is started talking about Supervisor Dorsey and criticized Supervisor Dorsey and his commitment to SOMA. And then Chair Melgar gave a warning, after which I think our petitioner was public commenter number 2 started speaking, and he was interrupted not once, he was interrupted more than once, he was interrupted at least twice. So I'm trying to understand, why was the first public commenter allowed to give their spiel and the second one was not even allowed to, finish what they were saying? Because it seems like they were trying to finish their statement, but they were constantly being interrupted.
I believe public commenters 1 and 2 were both interrupted and redirected.
Yeah, but commenter number 1 did get significant amount of it. It is a bigger, longer thing. Like at least from the text, it seems like they got more time to speak. It sort of seems like the second one just started and was immediately stopped. So I need to actually hear from Chair Melgar to know exactly what happened that day. So yeah, anyway, thank you so much.
All right. Yes, Ms. Samiro, let me just start with you. A couple questions. The item that we've been talking about, where public commenter number 2, who it's my understanding that it's the petitioner, they say our supervisor proudly claimed that there is no daylight between him and Senator Scott Wiener on housing. Yet this proposal, and that appears to be where that comment was stopped. Is there anything about the manner in which the speaker acted that contributed to the assertion that there was disruption here?
What I can say, when I did watch the presenter, the public commenters 1 and 2, I heard her, redirect the comments for the first one. By the second one, I think what she was doing was there was still a whole line of other commenters also there. And since she's recognizing a pattern that some of the 1 and 2 back to back are addressing a direct supervisor, she's putting out the reminder because it happened already, and ensuring that the rest of the public commenters who are also coming up behind them also get that reminder, since it didn't seem to be heard when she made those redirecting comments on the during the first commenter's time.
Okay, and it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm misinterpreting, but apparently this comment was about Supervisor Dorsey.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Was Supervisor Dorsey on that committee?
I do not believe he was a member. He was a visiting member of the committee. Yes.
So Supervisor Dorsey was in the room?
He was in the room sitting as a listening member.
Okay.
Non-voting.
Do you, from what you've seen,
Mm-hmm.
was the speaker facing or looking at Supervisor Dorsey when they spoke?
Yes. They, from what I can tell, yes, they were looking directly at the supervisor and trying to address their comments directly to him.
Where was Supervisor Dorsey sitting?
He was sitting, I believe, I don't know exactly. I have to check that. But they were in the committee, when they're sitting in the committee, they're all just sitting like there's 3 or 4. The public commenters face directly to them. So it wasn't necessarily like the angle. It was more just the comments and the way the person was addressing the supervisor directly.
So in this hearing, Supervisor Dorsey was not on the committee, but Supervisor Dorsey was sitting in
Yes.
in the supervisor seat.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And your position here is that this same quote from public commenter number 2, where it was said, our supervisor proudly claimed that there is no daylight between him and Senator Scott Wiener on housing, yet this proposal, that this speaker was addressing the specific supervisor. That's your contention, correct?
I believe the Chair Melgar was trying to redirect the comments because she heard it coming. Whether, they did not interrupt and stop his time or not allow him to finish his comments. It was an attempt to redirect and ensure that they were not going to continue, or they weren't going to continue others' violations of 4.22 and address the supervisor directly.
Would I know that the party here, the actual respondent is
Number 2.
Supervisor Melgar's office.
Mm-hmm.
Would either that office or you, as you're representing that office, take the position that a public commenter cannot identify a specific supervisor during public comment and something that that supervisor had done or said.
They may identify the supervisors. It's the addressing them directly. It's that is where that rule is there to keep decorum. It is not there to abridge anybody in what they may be saying. So they may be speaking about something about, Supervisor Dorsey's, legislation. That's not directing it to that. That's not a violation of 4.22. It's when they're actually trying to engage and direct their comments to that supervisor, not as an informational thing, not as saying, supervisor, whatever. But it's about the engagement and trying to keep the decorum so that we don't, the public comment doesn't degrade into a discussion or an attempt to discuss and address it directly with the supervisor.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple questions for the petitioner here. And I'm again going to focus on the item that we were just speaking about. Was that the first sentence that you spoke during that public comment session? It's unclear from the record I see, because I see timestamps where it looks like the first public commenter was speaking at maybe 11 minutes before you. And I'm just trying to figure out if I'm missing something here.
It was not the first words I spoke. At the top of page 9, you'll see a link to both the transcript and the recording. And so when I go to that transcript and I search, I started with "good afternoon." And this was the third sentence of my comment. So I introduced myself, I shared my name, I said what organization I was with, and then on the third sentence, I said, "our supervisor probably claimed."
Okay. There's a contention that I'm going to use a word as a term of art here, that you addressed Supervisor Dorsey, and that's the reason that you were stopped. And I wonder if you think it's fair to say that you addressed Supervisor Dorsey when you were speaking.
My argument is that it is irrelevant. It makes it even more absurd that they're claiming that, but it is irrelevant because addressing individual politicians is allowed under the Sunshine Ordinance and the Brown Act. And while I didn't include it in my opening comment, I will point you to page 12 of your packet, which is the official California Attorney General Office's interpretation of the Brown Act. And it says that prohibiting critical comments was a form of viewpoint discrimination, and that such a prohibition promoted discussion artificially geared toward praising and maintaining the status quo, thereby foreclosing meaningful public dialogue. And just after that, there is a different guide to interpreting the Brown Act, and it explicitly says on page 36, which I linked to at the top of page 13, "May the presiding officer prohibit a member of the audience from publicly addressing an agency employee by name during public comments." And the official Ralph M. Act interpretation guide on page 36 says no, as long as the criticism pertains to job performance. So I don't really need to speculate on whether I was addressing or not. If I were, it is explicitly protected by our Sunshine Ordinance and the Brown Act. And the last thing I'll just say is, the Brown Act as state law represents the bare minimum of open meeting standards. And it also says that any municipality is welcome to embrace local ordinance that goes beyond the Brown Act. And that is what we've done in the Sunshine Ordinance.
So you were saying one thing you're saying, and my question, you haven't quite answered it yet, okay, is do you think you were addressing Supervisor Dorsey when you spoke?
No, if I was addressing Supervisor Dorsey, I would have spoken.
You're saying, was that a no I heard? I think I just want a yes/no answer first. Do you feel like do you feel like you were addressing Supervisor Dorsey first?
No, I was not in
Okay.
this sentence.
Was it your intention to be addressing Supervisor Dorsey when you spoke the comment that we're looking at, timestamp 4514?
No, I would not have referred to him in the third person as our supervisor. That's not how you address people.
Okay. So that I'm going to jump a little bit here from whether or not what you were doing would qualify as addressing. I'm not saying that's the only issue here. I'm going to jump just for a second to if what you said was addressing Supervisor Dorsey under the rule, you're also claiming that even if that were addressing, then the rule as applied in this case would violate the Sunshine Ordinance. Is that also a contention that you would agree with?
I believe that Chair Melgar violated the Sunshine Ordinance by interrupting me and alleging that I was being disruptive because courts have held that disruption is physical disruption, not criticism. And second, to your question, it is clear to me, based on existing case law, that the presence of this rule in the Board of Supervisors Rules of Order is itself a violation of local, state, and federal law. And so as the Sunshine Task Force held in the Petrellis case, any order of determination down the road from the task force, I would ask that it includes a recommendation for the Board of Supervisors to remove this rule entirely.
What you just mentioned, courts that ruled that disruption is physical disruption. What courts were those?
Yes, the case that I'm aware of is cited in the Brown Act guide. And so Do you know what court that is and what the name of the case is? The case was BACA, B-A-C-A, versus Moreno Valley Unified School District. They held that offering a dissenting political viewpoint is an exercise of democratic rights. It is not an actual disruption. Can you, what's this citation? I got the name of the case. What's the CalApp? I assume it's a published case. What's the CalApp citation? I don't have that, but it's in the packet on page 12.
That's fine.
The case is in the middle of page 12. Page 12. Okay. Thank you. All right. I have no more questions. I see that Member Kumar wants to question. Go ahead.
This is for the petitioner. So in the transcript, I was actually trying to look for the point where they cut you off, because it does seem like, at least from the way I read it and the way it's worded, it seems like you were allowed to like after the second warning, when you were stopped, you were allowed to speak. When I think this point where they say we will leave off campaign commitments from today's comment, is that the point where you were cut off?
Well, I was cut off twice, but my response to the third was that we will leave off campaign commitments from today's comment, which, of course, I am not an expert in case law and hadn't researched any of this when interrupted live, but it is important to note that Chair Melgar's actions and this rule, which is regularly enforced at the Board of Supervisors, has a chilling effect on robust discourse at City Hall.
Sorry to cut you off. So you yourself said that I won't be committing on campaign commitments. They didn't really push you or cut you off, right?
I disagree that they did not cut me off because I said I'm attempting to talk about policy and you're stopping me from talking about policy. So I was forced to alter my speech to fit this arbitrary and illegal rule. I do believe that my speech was curtailed. I had the only way I was allowed to complete my comment was by altering my speech.
But after that, when you kept talking, they did let you finish your comment, right?
They let me finish an altered form of my comment that satisfied a rule that chills debate. So I disagree that my speech was not impacted. It is obviously impacted in the transcript.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, members, I think we may be done with questions, but if anything comes up, we certainly can go back and ask a question or two. This is when we might decide what we want to do with the matter. This is our deliberation period. Members, do you have thoughts on this? Yes, Member Kumar.
All I want to say is that while it's very unfortunate that the department interrupted the petitioner, my concern is, I mean, the petitioner changed tracks on their own and decided to not continue talking about the same topic. I mean, interruptions, it's not, I mean, the department won't have the insight to know that the person they're stopping will alter their speech. It's sort of like this understanding, this implicit thing that happened. And, we can't work off these subjective things. So I honestly think in this particular case, I don't see a violation. While it's very unfortunate the department did it, we could probably give them a warning and say, don't do it again, because it does affect people trying to, people lose track of their thoughts and stuff like that. But I honestly don't think if the petitioner is changing their mind and altering their comment, it should be on the department. That's my view.
I would I disagree on that. The speaker was speaking, and the chair decided that something that the speaker had said was a violation. And so the chair was telling that person, you have just, you addressed an individual supervisor, that is disruption. And so the chair was, the chair did go back to allowing speech to be done, but I feel that just in what the chair said to the public commenter was taking that position that there had been a violation that had occurred. So, I respect your position on it. I, agree to disagree on it, but that's kind of my reading on it. Yes.
Just one more thing. I feel that when they gave out the warning to the first commenter itself, it's obviously the second commenter doesn't have to necessarily adhere to that, but that warning was given out. So I'm not saying that the department is doing the right thing by, giving out such arbitrary warnings. But if they were following a process, I just feel this situation seems a little vague to me. I mean, it's always obviously debatable, and I agree to disagree with you as well. But for me, it just seems like a very classic case of them implementing a rule before the incident happened, and when the incident is happening, the person does a course correction on their own, and the department never asks them to do it, and then that obviously becomes a larger debate about what is a violation and what isn't. So that's just my point of view on this.
Okay, thank you, Member Stein.
So I really think there are two central questions that are being posed here. One is, does the decorum rule violate the Sunshine Ordinance or the Brown Act? It's a rule that says that remarks during public comment should be addressed to the board as a whole, not to individual supervisors. The second question is, was this rule applied improperly or in a discriminatory fashion? I think that first question is in our jurisdiction. I think the second question isn't so much in our jurisdiction, although I think it's a valid First Amendment question, but that's not really our terrain. But I do think the question of whether the decorum rule violates the sunshine ordinance. This is a very significant one. And for that reason, I would be in favor of moving this to the full task force to consider that question.
I think that's sort of where this has to go. I don't know if we can do anything with it in terms of, a recommendation. It does sound like we may not see this as being one of those easy cases where we put it on a consent calendar. I don't know if we need to make any kind of recommendation. I generally agree with you, Member Stein. The second part of what you said, I'd have to think about that, whether I don't think we can make rulings as to like purely violating the First and 14th Amendment, because that's not what we do. But there's sort of a weird intertwining between the laws that talk about speaking freely and then how they're interpreted in conjunction with the Constitution. But, I think that we could come to, if we get to that, we'll get to that later on if we're at the task force. But I agree. Let's just send it on and schedule it for a hearing. How about that? So anything else?
No, I agree. I agree. We should send it to the task force. I would love for more people to definitely weigh in on this. Sorry.
Okay.
Well, I'll make a motion that this was a public meeting under our jurisdiction and that we forward this matter to the full task force for consideration.
Oh, I'll second that.
Sorry, the second is Member Kumar.
Yes.
Moved by Vice Chair Stein, seconded by Member Kumar, to find that this is a public meeting under the jurisdiction of the task force and to forward the matter to the full Sunshine Ordinance Task Force with no recommendation. Taking public comment. No?
Yes, please.
2 minutes.
Up to 3.
Thank you. We have no one in the room. We have several individuals in the queue. Taking public comment, first caller is Mr. Aaron Wilson. Mr. Wilson, are you ready for your 3 minutes to begin?
Yes, thank you very much.
Time begins now.
Well, I want to thank the board and Ms. Peterson for their attendance today in this matter. I would say in brief that this is what separates us. So this should go forward to the full board, I believe, rightly so. Because again, this separates us from all the other tyrannies in this world. And so let's stay true to that. And I would like to also add, if it's acceptable, that Governor Newsom was announced he was under investigation, and that was followed up yesterday by his attorney seeking FOIA from the DOJ, everything that they got on him. And that just shows you the go-to that this body has as relevance and as priority, and how important this particular function in all of its ways, free speech, documents, this, that, and the other thing, it's the go-to for where the truth is, the good stuff, as I like to call it. So again, thank you very much, and I support the board's findings in this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Hello, caller. Do you wish to make public comment on item 4?
Yes, I do. Hi, my name is Jasmine Gardner. I am a Soma West resident who has directly benefited from Sean's countless hours of volunteer work. And as I think you can tell from this call, consistently found him to be professional, respectful, and exceptionally knowledgeable about parliamentary procedure and public process. Watching him be repeatedly interrupted while making what appears to be a straightforward reference to my district supervisor is frustrating and frankly really discouraging. I've attended enough public meetings to see some truly disruptive behavior that was never mentioned. And this incident was not one of those moments. When some of the community's most engaged and knowledgeable volunteers struggle to be heard, it can leave the rest of us really wondering whether public participation is being encouraged or merely tolerated. We often hear that civic engagement is important, and situations like this make people question whether it's actually welcome. I appreciate you guys taking this seriously and forwarding it on.
Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Hello, caller. Do you wish to make public comment on item 4? Hello, caller. You've been unmuted. Confirming we have a caller who is identified as Kelly. Do you wish to make public comment on item 4?
I can't unmute. Oh, hi. Sorry. I think I unmuted. You caught me in the middle of that. My apologies.
Okay. Would you like your 3 minutes to begin?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Your time begins now.
Thanks. I just commenting to offer support for the complainant today in this matter, and would like to point the committee to another example of almost exactly the same behavior by Chair Melgar in a meeting of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on Wednesday, April 29th. During public comment, approximately 2 hours in or so, there are commenters who address a supervisor by name, praising them, thanking them. I believe it was also Supervisor Dorsey in this case, and Chair Melgar did not intervene, but when another commenter offered criticism about the supervisor, she intervened in a similar manner to the case that we're discussing today. So that's just one other recent example of sort of the exact same behavior by the supervisor. And I would echo a previous commenter's statements around, our current political environment in the country today, that, processes like these are absolutely critical in our government, right down to the smallest local level, or the seemingly smallest local level as we are here today. So I thank the committee for pushing this on to the full board for review and for corrections, hopefully, to Chair Melgar's office, as well as the written ordinances of the board in general that conflict with state law, as mentioned before. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, caller. You've been unmuted. Do you wish to make public comment on item 4? Caller, you're identified as Laura. Do you wish to make public comment on item 4? We'll return to you. I am muting your phone. Mr. Young, do you have access to Laura's telephone? Lara. Going to the next public comment.
Do not have a microphone symbol on her name.
I don't either. Laura, we will come back to you. Moving on to Leah. Hello, Leah. You've been unmuted. Do you wish to make public comment on item 4? Last call. Leah, you've been unmuted.
Give me one moment. I'm going to try a few things.
Me too. Mr. Young, confirming that Leah has been moved to panelist.
I did do that, but there was no change in the microphone on our side.
Chair Schmidt, do I have your permission to pause for a moment and reach out to
That's fine.
SFGov? Thank you.
They have hung up. Oh, there she goes. I do see a symbol by Laura's name. I'm going to unmute her right now.
Thank you.
Laura,
Oh,
you can unmute it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh,
Thank you for
thank
your
you.
patience.
Sorry, no, I think it was probably on my fault. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak at this board. I recently became more engaged in the sort of speaking up and attending these Board of Supervisor meetings, and I wanted to just point out my experience and how this is actually not a one-off. It's a repeated pattern where if the comments are not favorable, then we're being asked to not refer to the supervisors by name. The first instance occurred during a Housing First hearing, which was led and introduced by Supervisor Chen. And at the beginning of the hearing, she was highly engaged and asking detailed questions about budget figures and all that. But when it came time to for a public comment, I directed my remarks to Supervisor Chen because it was to go through the statistics of SOMA, which accounts for 24% of the city's affordable housing and 34% of the pipeline, whereas Chen's district accounts for well below 3% and less than 1% of the pipeline. I wasn't expecting to have a debate. I understand the rules of decorum, but it seemed like going through these obvious statistics to be discussing at this type of hearing, I was shut down, being told that I was not allowed to refer to the supervisor. The second instance was during the SB 79 alternative plan hearing. And in my remarks, I named Dorsey as my D6 supervisor. And when referring to the requirement to provide economic opportunities in SOMA and not the containment zone that has been described in the HCD complaint that was sent to the state. So all of these discussions were, I feel, professional, and yet were somewhat, discouraged by the fact that I had mentioned the supervisor's name. And my concern is, in a democracy, these elected officials have a responsibility to hear both praise and criticism, especially on issues for which they are spearheading or are directly accountable. And so the decorum rule, I think, needs to be taken a closer look at, because it's actually none of these examples are regarding decorum. It's actually shutting down, listening to any sort of feedback that they are not willing to listen to. Which way we're looking at? Well, quite often, the supervisors are all sitting together, and I'm confused as to, are we supposed to be looking in the opposite direction? Obviously, we're looking at the supervisors when we're presenting. So finally, I also want the committee to understand that we're all busy people. We have our jobs and we have obligations, and yet we're taking the time to go to these Board of Supervisor meetings in order to express or share our experiences. So being blocked or sort of shut down because we're mentioning a supervisor is really, I feel it's really truly providing a chilling effect on our ability to provide any sort of feedback to our elected officials.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Hello, Mr. Pilpel. Yes, you wish to.
Yes, it's Member Pilpel. I don't see a need for me to weigh in on the merits at this, so I'm not. No, I'm happy to do so when this comes before the full task force.
Pardon, Member Pilpel, I have paused you.
I do that the supervisor.
Member Pilpel, just a moment. Chair Schmidt, I have paused. Member Pilpel, we're having trouble hearing you. Is there any adjustment that you can make on your end that might help us hear you better?
Is this better?
That is better. Thank you. Restarting the clock.
Okay. All right. What I was saying is I see no need to weigh in on the merits at this time, so I won't. I will when this gets to the full task force if the motion passes. It does appear to me that the complaint was against Supervisor Melgar, and while Assistant Clerk Samara's testimony was interesting and helpful, I don't think it entirely substitutes for the supervisor or one of her aides attending. So I would strongly encourage the committee, if it passes the motion, to direct that an additional invitation be sent to Supervisor Melgar and her staff so that either the supervisor or a representative can appear to provide testimony and perhaps answer any questions the full task force may have. Those are my thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you. Laura, we see your hand raised, but I believe we've heard from you. I'm going to unmute you to confirm. And your hand has been lowered. Checking again with Leah. Hello, Leah. You've been unmuted. We weren't able to hear from you earlier. Would you like to make public comment on item 4?
Yes, you can hear me now, though.
We can hear you. Your 3 minutes begins now.
Great, thank you. So I was the public commenter who had spoken prior to the complainant, who has been referenced throughout this as being able to give my full public comment without interruption, while the complainant was interrupted twice during theirs. And so it was clearly different treatment. From my perspective, as the person who spoke first, I was only told at the end that it needed to be addressed to the entire committee, whereas the complainant was interrupted multiple times during their public comment. I also think that that the rule that you can't direct you can't not even direct, but not even publicly state a member of the Board of Supervisors is completely unreasonable. It is pretty clear from the complainant's comment that they were making a factual statement about a position that the supervisor has taken. And it was not directed towards the supervisor. It was just a statement about their policy, their position on a policy. And so it's very bizarre to me that that is not allowed. And it seems like in making it so that a citizen can't make a public statement about their Board of Supervisors in public comment that are critical, but still said politely, said factually, is not allowed when there are many public commenters who disrupt decorum in much more blatant ways. For example, there is literally a person who yells "fuck you" at the end of their public comment at the end of nearly every Board of Supervisors meeting I've attended. That has never been I've never heard anybody reprimand that person or say that that does not represent decorum. However, if somebody makes a statement about a representative's positions, particularly a critical one, they are reprimanded. That seems like a really bizarre double standard that I don't understand. Secondly, I want to echo the previous public commenter statements that this is a pattern. I frequently attend public comment multiple times. I have seen Supervisor Melgar allow praise of a specific supervisor, but shut down public criticism. And so it seems like a blatantly unfair policy. And then finally,
30 seconds.
I very much appreciate the committee putting this forward. That being to the Sunshine Committee, I think it's important that this is discussed. That being said, I am surprised there is not a recommendation, because to me, this seems like a pretty blatant violation of the Sunshine Act, and it's clearly having a chilling effect on public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Last call for anyone wishing to make public comment who hasn't already done so regarding item 4. Please raise your hand in the app or press *3. We have no one in the room, no hands raised.
So we're up for a vote, I guess.
I'm sorry, it was, moved by Vice Chair Stein, seconded by Member Kumar. Taking the vote on item 4. Vice Chair Stein.
Aye.
Vice Chair Stein, aye. Member Kumar.
Aye.
Member Kumar, aye. Member Sugarman, absent. Chair Schmidt. Chair Schmidt, aye. 1 absent, 3 ayes. Motion passes.
Thank you, members.
Thank you, parties.
Thank you.
Item number 5. File number 26071. Complaint filed by Kay Chan against the San Francisco Human Services Agency for allegedly violating Administrative Code Sunshine Ordinance Section 67.21 by failing to respond to a public records request in a timely and/or complete manner. Parties, if you are present remotely, would you please raise your hand in the app or press *3 so that we can identify you? Hello, caller. You've been unmuted.
My name is Kay Chan.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Kay Chan. Can you hear me?
Yes, one moment, please. Promoting you to panelist.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Hello, caller, identified as Monica. Are you here for item 5?
Yes.
Ms. Malari, promoting you to panelist. We have Kay Chan, petitioner, present. Monica Malari from the department, present.
Okay, when we're ready to start the time, let's hear first from the petitioner.
Mr. Chan, I apologize for having referred to you with the incorrect pronoun. Are you ready for your 3 minutes to begin?
I am ready.
Your time begins now.
Honorable hearing officers, members of the Sunshine Officer Training Force, my name is Kay Chan. I am a former senior eligibility worker for the Human Services Agency, classification 29005. Today, I am here present evidence that demonstrate not only the statutory violation of California Labor Code 1198.5, but also a pattern of bad faith spoliation of evidence and administrative deception by HSA management and the Sunshine Unit. My request was simple. My personal records under the law, these were produced within 30 days. The deadline passed April 5th, 2026. Today is June 26th. I have received nothing but delays, contradicting statements, and demand of a waiver. This presentation will walk you through critical phases: the spoliation, the destruction of evidence before the formal request, the contradiction the agency admitted recorded did exist, the evasion using procedures, hurdles, the cohesion during I signed away my privacy right. Let's start with the timeline. On February 2nd, Douglas Dye, the EAP counselor who handled my case, sent an email stating that he deleted records from and violated the retention policy. Why this matters, the admission came while my employment dispute was still active. These were not old irrelevant files, but records directly related to my mental health accommodations and potential retaliation. Legal standard under Labor Law Code 119.5 and CPR preservation duties, an agency has a duty to retain records once a dispute is known. Deleting them constitutes a spoilage of evidence. Cover-up. Despite these evidence, February 9th, respondents Michelle Berry certified to this SOTF that no response records existed. The proof, 4 days later, February 13th, HSA produced my Skelly packet. How could these be no records and then produce my record a few days later? Contradiction of statutory violations. Moving to a formal request on March 5th, I submitted a labor code 11985. The law is 30 days. March 13th, own IT Robert Eckworth completed the technical search of 2,000 emails. What happens is that they invoke the rule of reason of drip feeding of bi-weekly, which would reduce my reduction to about 5 months period of time.
Mr. Chan, that concludes your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
And we do have your what you've submitted in writing to us. Okay. Next, we can hear when the time's ready from the respondent, up to 3 minutes.
Ms. Malari, are you ready for your 3 minutes?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Your time begins now.
Good evening, members of the task force. The HSA Sunshine Department denies the allegation submitted by Mr. Chan for these proceedings. Upon receiving his initial request on March 5th, 2026, the HSA immediately initiated a record search. At the same time, we reviewed the
Pausing the clock.
specifically.
Ms. Malari, we paused
Yes.
the clock. Can you please back up to your statement?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Was the microphone too much?
I don't know, but you are cutting in and out.
Oh,
Let me
Is
know when to restart the clock.
okay. Is this better?
That is better. We're restarting the clock.
Okay, I will repeat where I was. Good evening, members of the task force. The HSA Sunshine Department denies the allegations submitted by Mr. Chan for these proceedings. Upon receiving Mr. Chan's initial request on March 5th, 2026, the HSA immediately initiated a record search. At the same time, we reviewed the nature of the request and correctly determined that it was a personnel-related inquiry, specifically a request for his own personnel file, not a public records request seeking information related to HSA operations. We informed Mr. Chan of this determination and consulted with relevant departments, including the Employee Labor Relations Coordinator, as well as the Office of Civil Rights and Human Resources. Mr. Chan later expanded his request and asserted that a deadline had passed. We responded the same day and advised him that the search had produced approximately 2,000 items as a search result. Many of these were duplicative and contained personal identifiable information for clients that would require redaction. Because the request involved sensitive HR information, we requested standard identification verification consistent with the HR protocol. We also reminded Mr. Chan of HR's established procedure for personnel file inspection and offered multiple in-person appointment options, given his refusal to verify his identity. During this period, the HSA consulted with the city attorney team regarding whether personnel records could be released through the Sunshine Portal, a public forum. Under the advice of the Labor City Attorney, we were instructed to obtain a signed waiver from Mr. Chan before
30
releasing
seconds.
HR records through the public forum. Mr. Chan has declined to sign the waiver and has repeatedly refused the standard in-person personnel file inspection process. We are not withholding his records. We are simply mirroring the HR protocol because these are HR-related private records.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, questions for the parties? I've got a couple. I'm going to ask this Chair Schmidt, the respondent, when you get a request like this, it seems like there's a determination that was made at some point that this needs to be treated as a request for personnel records. And I get that. Was there at what point in time was this treated as a public records request? Was it initially treated that way and then sort of like sent over when it was decided that what's really being sought here is a personnel file? Could you tell me how that occurred in this case?
So we not only received a request from Mr. Chan via the Sunshine mailbox, I believe other departments such as the Human Resources Department were also receiving the same requests for records.
Okay, and it looked maybe to you like the way he was presenting it was as a Sunshine request. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
Okay.
Initially, we treated it as a Sunshine request, and we still initiated the search for records.
Okay, and were there any records at any time in this process that were producible?
From the March 5th request, all of the items that was requested were personal to himself, to Mr. Chan.
Okay, and so it was your conclusion, it sounds like, that these are the kind of documents where they would only be provided to the employee themselves, and the employee has to follow specific procedures to get access. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. I know that you have the packet with you. So just because we do have the initial request there, and it was from March 5th was the date of the item that is being complained.
Okay. Oh, did you finished your answer to that question, correct?
Correct. I was just
Okay.
kind of trying to look for the page of where March 5th was so that you could also maybe look at the request.
Yeah, it certainly looks like, for the most part, this is a personnel file matter. You said that you did reach out to do record searches, and at least initially. I saw some notation about how there were employees who may have had relevant information, but there was a determination that they were no longer at the job, and so therefore their email accounts would no longer be available. Do you recall that finding in this case?
So when we initiated the search for records, Mr. Chan, at the very end of his records request on March 5th, he wrote he wanted any and all emails and correspondences in relation to his employment performance and any communication regarding himself. And so that would require us to look for his name. And he also was searching for specific emails that he sent when he was still an employee. We went ahead and sent this request over to our IT department for those correspondences. And our IT department explained to us that with the Department of Technology, they hold the email. And so he does his best to search for Mr. Chan's mailbox, but once the employment had ended, the mailbox was no longer searchable for him. So he had to use his name as part of the keywords to search for any and all correspondences that Mr. Chan sent out or that he received. And so any keyword item for review or performance or evaluation with the words K Chan, it resulted in duplicative and in added irrelevant correspondences.
You cut out.
We lost you there just a second ago.
Oh, hello?
Yeah. You said there were duplicative correspondences, and then there was a cutout.
10 people, and there was the title of their email was, oh, case transfer, please review. Then the attachment would be all of these case data for clients in program when he was still an eligibility worker, and it would be duplicated by the amount of times that this email was sent. So if there was 10 people in the unit, there would be 10 copies of the same email. And so this requires a lot of time to review which emails and correspondences are related to his request for his own performance and his own employment.
Is that a let's call it you would have to review, you would have to take time to review those kinds of records. Is that something where you would need to first have the correct authorization from Mr. Chan, and then you would go about going through and doing that process?
Correct. Releasing those emails is it wouldn't be a problem to release him his own emails that he's looking for, given that we redact personal identifiers. But the problem was that he did not want to go through the standard protocol that HR has in line when it comes to releasing personnel files. And despite that Sunshine is not an HR forum, what he is requesting is HR related. So we wanted to follow suit with the policy and procedure that HR has.
Got it. Okay, thank you. And this may be my last subject, which is you said that you found out that since he was not there anymore, his email box was not searchable.
That is what the IT manager, our subject matter expert, he's unavailable to be here today, but I had supporting documents, but I didn't include that because it wasn't brought up until the later stuff came.
Yeah.
But I do have supporting documents where he explains what happened, why we have to put his name in the main key search. And that's why it produced so many records for us to have to sort through.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's all I have. Members, any other questions? In that case, let's talk about what we ought to do with this. Yes, Member Kumar.
It sort of seems like there was no clarity on how many documents were in the equation. Because it sort of seems the department also didn't know how many records they would have to pull out. I think there could have been a little better communication between both parties. I mean, the petitioner was specific about what they wanted, but I mean, obviously inputting somebody's name and getting over 3,000, 2,000 things, is very hard to sift through. So I honestly feel if the department is willing to work with the petitioner and the petitioner is willing to make their request a little bit more specific, they might get the records they want, because it doesn't seem like the department doesn't want to give it to them. It just seems like a case of too much information overload.
Thank you. Yes, Member Stein.
It just seems like these are personnel records and not public records. And so I don't know that we have jurisdiction in this case. And I'm not sure if that's, if we send it to the full task force, I think that question of jurisdiction needs to be addressed.
Yes, I certainly agree that to the extent this is a request to enforce anything in the labor code, we do not have jurisdiction to deal with that. And it does seem that the lion's share of what we're talking about here would all be in a personnel file. And typically, a personnel file is available to the specific employee, but that's not through the Sunshine process. That's through, it has to happen with, under the rules that apply to personnel records, and those are not rules that we have any involvement with. I don't see an indication that there's anything here that would be outside of that, the personal records classification, but I could imagine that there would possibly be. Member Kumar.
I also want to say that because the department did tell the petitioner to go to human resources and get the documentation, and the petitioner didn't do that unless we have, and if obviously the petitioner went to human resources and didn't get what they needed, and some of the information is public, we should know about it, then obviously I think it could have come to the task force. But because all the all the steps were not met in this process and we don't have confirmation. I think from the outset, I agree with Member Stein. It's sort of like it's personal, private information that, shouldn't really be public. And if the department is willing to give it to them through the human resources channel, then the petitioner should ideally take that.
And I will just add that, the California Public Records Act 6254C exempts personnel records from the Public Records Act, and there's nothing in the Sunshine Ordinance that brings those records back in.
Okay, so, we may potentially come to the conclusion that there's just no jurisdiction, which doesn't happen that often here. But if we do come to that conclusion, then the question is, do we send it forward, or do we not send it forward and make sort of our final decision that task force simply doesn't have jurisdiction? And I've always not known sort of the answer to that, because the rules are written in a way that's somewhat ambiguous. Because we're supposed to decide jurisdiction, but, can we really make the final call? Maybe we can, and maybe that's what we should. Maybe we should do that, and then we're done. Or maybe we send it with a recommendation, or we put on a consent calendar saying, that no jurisdiction, consent, done, kind of thing. Yes, Member Stein.
I don't know. I had an opinion, and then as you were talking, I'm like, maybe. My general process has been to, when it's like a little bit of a sticky question like this, to err on the side of just putting it in front of the task force and letting them discuss it. I feel like if we put it into the consent calendar, it's probably going to get severed, and that's like a whole other process. So, because I feel like the question of jurisdiction is just a really big question. Like, we have to conclude that we're not even going to hear the case. I feel like it probably should go through the full task force. But so I would want to send it forward and just say, we're forming this full task force. We don't believe that there's any jurisdiction. That's the question to consider to start. But I don't know.
And let's say we throw in that we recommend a finding that there's no jurisdiction. Is that right?
That there's no jurisdiction and therefore no violation, but maybe not put it on the consent calendar.
Okay, that's fine. Yes, Member Kumar.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I don't think we should do a deliberation in the task force, because it does seem like a case where, these are private records, and I wouldn't want us to deliberate on this, because it might be like a long deliberation and we might come to the same conclusion. So I agree with Member Stein that we should not put it on the agenda for it, definitely, but definitely we should put in the recommendation.
That sounds like the
sounds like the opposite.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because there will be a discussion. It's not on the consent calendar, but my fear is that if it's on the consent calendar, it's going to get severed, and then there'll still be a discussion. So it's just extra long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think there will be a discussion for sure.
Okay. No, okay, my bad. I actually want the opposite. I don't want us to dissect and discuss it, because I have a feeling it can go on, like it will be discussed and we'll come to the same conclusion that we've come today. So I honestly think it should just be like, okay, this is what we have.
That would be consent calendar.
It'll be consent calendar, yeah.
Well, we could try.
May I please have a restatement?
We haven't made any motions yet. In fact, we could, at this point, if you want to, since we're supposed to do it this way, we could hear public comment first and then make a motion.
Anyone wishing to make public comment on item 5, please raise your hand in the app or press *3. I'll give you a moment. We have no one in the room, no hands raised.
Okay. So maybe, I don't think the motion has to be that complicated.
So I can say we believe that these are personnel records, or I can move that these are personnel records not under our jurisdiction, and we're sending it to the consent calendar with a recommendation that because there is no jurisdiction, there is no violation.
I'll second that. Yeah, let me just say that Mr. Chan, I think needs to go through the process that they've given him. He's got to go in and look at his personnel file. That's my understanding of how you do it. And this is just not something that you can get through Sunshine. Okay, Mr. Peterson, go ahead.
Moved by Vice Chair Stein, seconded by Chair Schmidt, to find that these are personnel records and not under our jurisdiction, and to refer the matter to the consent agenda with a recommendation that because there is no jurisdiction, there is no violation. Taking the vote. Vice Chair Stein.
Aye.
Vice Chair Stein, aye. Chair Schmidt.
Aye.
Chair Schmidt, aye. Member Sugarman absent. Member Kumar.
Aye.
Member Kumar, aye. 3 ayes. Motion passes.
Thank you to the parties.
Thank you, parties.
I just want to appreciate Member Stein for always coming up with such wonderful motions, and I really feel grateful that I'm learning as much as I can from her on the task force. I really am very grateful.
Thanks.
She's the guru. Yeah, we just follow her in everything.
Well, let's see if that doesn't get pulled off the consent calendar after a long discussion.
Item 6, proposed edits to Sunshine Ordinance Task Force complaint procedures. This is for discussion and action and includes the attachments that were presented at the May 19, 2026 Complaint Committee meeting.
All right. So we had this last month, and Member Pilpel was not able to appear. So we talked a little bit about it, but we pretty much kind of kicked the can to allow Mr. Pilpel, Member Pilpel, to be present. I know there was a request that we made to try to sort of pick out, say, 3 different pieces of this, and we start with that. It seems like there's just a whole lot here, and it's the question of how do we manage to look at this document is sort of part of the issue. Before we ask Member Pilpel to sort of give us a presentation, members, is there anything that you think we should say before we just start going on this? Member Stein?
I'll just say, I don't know if Member Pilpel is still here.
Member Pilpel has been added as a panelist.
Oh, okay, good. Because I was going to say, if he's not here, we could try going paragraph by paragraph. That was an alternative approach. But anyway, he's here, so we'll hear what he has to say.
Okay, so let's, Member Pilpel, how would you like to handle this, keeping in mind that I think we did some kind of count and there were hundreds and hundreds of different edits. And so that seemed a little bit hard to manage, but go ahead and tell us what you make your presentation, in other words.
Great. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So I prepared some brief comments and then I had a suggested approach. So per the minutes, I received no advisory memorandum, but we did discuss the matter briefly at the full task force. There really are no major changes here. This should not be too confusing, and I think we can just work through it. The main intent and purpose is to conform to existing practices, improve readability, and use fewer words, and to try to avoid duplication You asked for the top 3 substantive changes, and I think I would describe those as the more language in the compliance report, section D, some changes to deadlines, for example, 90 days rather than 120 days in the proposed section C1, and some I would describe as minor changes to the hearing procedures in section C generally. As to revised grammar and punctuation, that's incorporated throughout. It may not be perfect, and there probably are some things that we can improve upon. I did hear Member Stein's comments at the first hearing. And I also noticed in the packet tonight some changes that I did not submit. So I have no idea where those came from.
It was probably Member Stein.
Okay. Because I did not suggest at this point limiting the number of complaints to a single complainant per calendar year. I mean, hey, I could be supportive of that idea, but that was not in my original draft. So I don't know how that found its way in. My suggested process for tonight, it seems like we may have a little time to go through it. If you go to page 9 of the packet material, that has the marked revisions version, and I was going to suggest walking through that. The first 2 pages may take a couple of minutes, but I really don't think there's anything substantive in that. And then we can either proceed on to the 3rd page or do something else. But that was my suggestion, is to start with page 9 in the packet with the marked revisions version. Does that work for everyone?
I'll say I think that works. I'm just wondering if we want to, I don't want to spend hours and hours and hours going through this, so we might want to break it up into several sessions, which is why I had earlier also suggested maybe just, going section by section, seeing the stuff we can agree on, but maybe breaking it up because there are an awful lot of changes.
Okay. Why don't we just start with the first page?
Yeah.
So
I need to ask. I agree with you that there are, like, if you just look at 9 and 10, it generally looks like some concise wording changes, etc. But then when you get to the 3rd page, I'm looking at a huge amount of redlining, and it's hard for me to imagine how that's just like punctuation and grammar.
Right.
What's going on here? And there's a lot of redlining throughout this document. What's how exactly is that redlining somehow, how do you propose that the whole task force would look at this and look at those huge swaths of redlining and not think that these are changes in substance?
Okay. Then let me back up for just a brief moment. When there was discussion several months ago about changes to the bylaws and length of meetings and hearings and our procedures generally, there were recommendations out of this committee, various members, and we adopted most of those bylaws changes. I made some other suggestions as to the bylaws, but when I spent a little time with the bylaws, I also was reminded of the complaint procedures, and I was going to suggest some minor tweaks to the complaint procedures to harmonize with changes to the bylaws and again to conform with current practice. But then when I spent some time with the complaint procedures, I found that there was duplicative language within the procedures. There was some stuff that was inconsistent, and overall it just reflected, and I thought about how the complaint procedures came to be, that they were originally written years and years ago, and they've been amended on occasion, not frequently, but often when they've been amended, it was to address one particular issue or problem, and it did not involve a more substantial overhaul or conforming with the changes in practice. So we've on occasion departed from the procedures and acted somewhat differently, and those haven't all been memorialized in the procedures. In addition, the tone of the procedures varies. Part of it is like a how-to guide and addressed to you. So here's what you should do as a complainant or as a respondent, and then how we as the task force address it. Then there are other portions that read in the third person. There's this weird one-page summary at the end that some might find helpful. I think some may find it helpful, not everyone may, and there's language in that summary that appears to conflict with the procedures and the current process. So the time that I spent on the procedures ended up with, as Chair Schmidt, as you suggest, the first 2 pages are somewhat streamlining and cosmetic, and then starting on the third page, I did do some surgery to move things around, and it largely ended up with the categories that I thought followed a better flow of the procedures from start to finish. So I guess I can go through that for a quick second, but I really did want to go back and start on page 9. So before I do that, if you look at starting on page 11, and I thought there was a table. Yeah, I guess it's not in this packet. The original version that I had a table that showed the original section and then the disposition of it. So C1 is about scheduling and closing files. That seemed like an overall concept. C2 is about priority for section 67.21b complaints. C3, starting on page 12, is on limits on complaints set for hearing, and the version that I had ended that with a maximum of 2 complaints per meeting, period. The additional verbiage in there did not come from me. C4, the hearing notice and submission deadline, that also seemed to me to flow after you've set a matter for hearing, then providing notice and the submission deadline seemed like the next thing. C5 is about continuances and the process to grant in advance or leaving to the committee's discretion if it's not done in time. C6 is about familiarity with
let me
complaints.
I'm going to stop you on continuances.
Sure.
So what I'm looking at here, and the table you described doesn't, I've not seen such a table. I don't know if that's ever been in the record. So I mean, maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm just kind of confused about a lot of this. I'm going to ask you about, in a moment, I'm going to ask you about continuances, which is number 5. I'm going to ask some specific questions because I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And once I figure out, then I'm not going to probably be confused. But I have 2 members who both have a couple questions. First, I'm going to go to member Stein.
Oh, no, it's not the question so much as a comment. I think I do appreciate that you did this version, which shows what was cut and what was added. I think the problem is that there's so much that's kind of being tweaked all at the same time that it's almost like for some of it, like I had to go through and make my own annotations. Like when it looks like something is being cut, I looked at, okay, where did that get moved to? And then how did the language change when it was moved? But it's almost like you almost kind of want, and I think this would be something good for the whole task force when it goes forward, to have like an annotation, a note. Okay, this section's being cut and moved to this section because X, Y, and Z. Like a little bit more of your thought process so that people understand like why the changes are being made and don't look at all this red line and just think, oh, this stuff is all out, and not realize that it's gone somewhere else and it's maybe been reworded a little.
Okay. I did just do a quick search and I found that table that I was referring to was part of a memo that went to the full task force. I think at the March full task force meeting, it was the cover memo to this entire complaint procedure rewrite, and it was at the bottom of that first page. So I'm not pulling up the March agenda item right now, but I believe that was the first page there, and I can, repackage that. I can certainly take the marked revisions version and add notes or footnotes or a disposition scheme for the more substantive puts and takes.
I just think for the large swaths of red or blue, just so people understand when they look at it what happened there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I certainly can create that. Could we spend a moment just getting through the first 2 pages and see if there's any major issue with that?
Yes, just a moment. Administrator Peterson is showing us what looks like a table. Is that, Administrator Peterson, is that the table that explains what the movement is of large swaths of this?
I think it just gives like what the flow overall of how the document is organized.
Yes, remember,
I don't think it gives the explanation of
the
the swaths that are cut and moved somewhere else.
Okay, I'm going to give Member Kumar an opportunity here.
I just want to say, Chair, I think we should go ahead with Member Sugarman's suggestion from the last meeting, which is about just having like the top 3 points in bullet form about what are the most important concerns. And also number 2, I would really suggest that we should also have Member Sugarman's not here. It would be better if the whole complaint committees here if we really have to, go through everything, because I think I would love to have Member Sugarman's inputs as well. But I think we should also go ahead with the suggestion Member Sugarman gave in the last meeting about it just being just 3 pointers so that we have something to start off with and then we go ahead from there.
Good. Yeah, I think we'll probably end up doing that. Yes, I think maybe what we can get done today is just sort of figure out what exactly to do next. And that might involve Member Sugarman. Hopefully it does. But I think I was just kind of like trying to figure out, what the heck is going on here. I was sort of at that point, especially trying to figure out just how it appears. Member Pilpel, let me ask you this: these large swaths of red that are crossed out, was it generally that you put them somewhere else or you rewrote them? Is that what happened here?
Yes, they generally got moved elsewhere. I tried to keep the same order as much as possible within Section C about the hearing procedures, but it just wasn't entirely possible because I was trying to improve the flow of the document. And in so doing, some things got moved around. You'll see, for example, that sections 1A and 1B, there's a lot of redlining in there, but what that became was largely section 2, and it really just reduces the amount of verbiage, but maintains the same section 67.21b prioritization process, and then it moves language elsewhere about how the the consent calendar works, and other things that seemed like they made better sense elsewhere. So, for example, informing the parties about any further information is moved elsewhere in the document.
Elsewhere, okay.
It's all, I would say that the only things that got ultimately eliminated were those where I thought there was too much specificity or duplication. And, there was some amount of duplication. I tried to attack that head on. And in general, where there was discretion, I placed that discretion with the task force chair and the committee chairs, and not with the administrator, so that the administrator can simply effectuate the procedures and sort of be a neutral. And if there's any question about what applies, then the administrator goes to the task force chair or the applicable committee chair, and they work it out.
Okay. I'm going to suggest that we, in a summary fashion, let's talk our way through this, but I don't think we should get bogged down in pros and cons of any change today.
That's fine.
But because I think that there's some basic, like, I agree, the first 2 pages, I understood what's going on there, but starting with the 3rd page, I got lost. And so let's figure out page by page how we can figure out what's going on.
Okay.
And then we'll probably need to, if you've got some way of if something gets moved to somewhere else in the document, I think it needs to be marked that it got moved. Otherwise, I just don't see a way to read this thing.
Okay,
So
and
I
that's
think that's what needs to happen here. Okay.
okay, and that's really relevant to section C and D as I see it. But
Okay.
let's just start with page 9. So overall, page 9 starts with an introduction to the complaint procedures. I tried to be more consistent in language. I don't think I really moved anything out of here. You know, I didn't like the "we will work with you," and instead I made that more neutral. The task force or the SOTF works to resolve complaints, that sort of thing. In section A, I tried to define city body board. Oh, somebody changed that. Yeah, no, that should read city agency board commissioner department. Yeah, see there, somebody already made changes to this that weren't from my hand.
Yeah, well, Member Stein, she's that way, and so
Okay.
I don't know how to stop her sometimes.
Sorry, because originally when I got that copy in the Word document, I went in and made a few changes, and I'm happy to take them out as well. But I would like to actually can we just go section by section? Can we just do the introductory paragraph, approve it or not, section A, and then section B? Can we just do that for tonight? It's basically all on page 1 and 2.
You mean that we would get to the end of B and then we would call it a night, and then starting with C, we'd need to come back.
Yeah, with, some kind of, the change, something, what do you call it? Explaining the major changes, an addendum, some kind of footnote or something on what got cut and why and where it got moved. But we should go through because I did make a few changes, and we should just say whether we're keeping or not keeping. And
again, I don't have. I'm only looking at this now, and I don't have a document that indicates who made these changes. So
it's
as
only
I say,
me,
some of these.
so it's definitely me.
Okay.
But it's
I mean, I'll take responsibility for those changes I made, but
yeah. So let's just read through it. No,
that's fine.
In a moment, we will. That's fine. Member Kumar.
I just want to say, I think it's better if we only stick to page 1, because it seems like on page 2, particularly under points 5 and 5, there were some more changes, I think. So it might be good to just stick to page 1 and see how, because we might have to just discuss as well. So how about we just take it by page 1, and if we finish it, then we can get on to page 2, like something on those lines, like, because I want to see how long the deliberation on page 1 goes on.
Yeah, let's do one and then regroup.
yeah, I'm timing it too, so I just feel like if it's more than an hour, we should move on and
Okay.
do it in pieces.
And the idea here is that if we, I guess we're kind of operating in a consensus mode here. And yet we may run into items that people disagree on. We're not quite sure if we're going to end up having a whole page that everyone agrees to, and we would simply send it on as our recommended changes. But maybe that's what the case is going to be. But let's start with, it looks like A and B. Okay.
Well, can we start with the first paragraph?
First, paragraph by paragraph, yes.
Should we just read it as it's changed? Because I think I changed something here. I think it originally, but I can't remember. But you might know, Member Pilpel. I think it said will hold hearings, and I changed it to may hold hearings because we had decided that hearings do not need to be automatic.
Okay.
So should we just read it? Do you want, or?
I certainly agree that may will does not work for me, and we will is that's an example of something I'd vote against. May, yes.
But otherwise, I agree with all the changes in this paragraph. I'm fine with them, and I would approve it.
Okay.
Where is the? I'm just trying to find where Will.
No, I think it just says may because I changed it and you would have to go look at who put what changes in, but
Oh,
because originally when it came before us,
okay.
there was this idea that we would look at it and see what we thought or whatever. And I just contributed at that point in a few areas and some we may, member Pilpel may or may not agree with.
Okay.
The red marked out language is what we're trying to improve from. So I just didn't like the "we will work with you" to resolve your complaint informally, and if necessary, to formally schedule your complaint for a hearing before the full task force. I thought that was overly wordy, and so I recommended the what's in blue there. The SOTF works to resolve complaints informally, and as Member Stein amended it, may hold hearings on complaints at an SOTF committee and before the full SOTF period.
I would sign off on that.
Sure.
But we can save the motion for the end for like page 1.
Thank you. Can I get clarification on how the document will be edited and forwarded to the task force? Are the changes being discussed tonight something that I will be making now? Or how is this?
Why don't we see what edits there are? If there are edits that I need to make or explanation or clarification that I need to add, then I will do that. And if there's something else, then we'll figure out what else needs to happen depending on what change we're talking about. Does that work?
That does. I would like labeling conventions on documents so that the versions can be tracked and identified.
Yeah,
I
that's
agree.
probably a good idea since we can't do any kind of a sort of joint document edit where you have different people kind of going back and forth outside of the public hearing context. But yeah, so let's definitely have versions. Yes. Okay. All right. Member Stein.
And maybe Member Stein, in the future, if you edit a document that I've already edited, maybe you can select a different color or some other way.
Yes, I will do that. I apologize for this.
No problem. Okay, so Section A, Step 1, contact the SOTF about resolving your issue. I think these two graphs, 1 and 2, work. I would still go back to my proposed language about city, agency, board, commissioner, department, because there are agencies of the city, boards, commissions, and departments. City bodies are generally connected to an agency, board, commission, or department, and so city body, as I used it, or no, maybe I used
I
city
think you
agency.
used city agency,
Right?
and I thought city body was better, but I either way is fine. And actually, put back or county. I shouldn't have taken that out.
Oh no, I think I took that out
Oh, you
because I think people refer to the city and county as such, and that it's a city body. Let me try to think about.
I'm just looking at the Sunshine Ordinance, and it says City and County of San Francisco.
Right.
I don't know.
And it's a weird, unique city because it truly is a city and county. Like there's no separate county, there's no separate city. It's the only city and county possibly in the whole country. And so it always, as far as I know, especially in a document like this, I think we always have to describe it as city and county. It's like city and county of San Francisco. I don't know if there's any city agencies. I don't know if there's any county agencies technically. I think they all have to be city and county.
Yeah, but I think I was just looking at the Sunshine Ordinance, and under definitions, A, they say city shall mean the city and county of San Francisco. So the
Right.
Sunshine Ordinance just uses the term city throughout
Sure.
to mean city and county. So I think we could go either way. And I'll just say, I think it was me who put city body. And I think I put it in part because I'd been reading all that commission streamlining task force stuff. And they had decided just to call the collective, agglomeration of all these things a body. And also I've been calling it a body in our task force reports. And so I think that's why I changed it to body.
Okay.
Member Kumar,
why
do you
don't
have
I-
a comment? Hold on a second. Member Kumar.
Just a question, why why are we using the word may instead of will hold hearings? The last line,
Because we are not required to hold hearings for every case that comes before us. And may is the term that's used in the Sunshine Ordinance. And we don't want people to think that we automatically have to hold a hearing because they submit a complaint. Like it can be resolved, for instance, on a consent calendar and not have a hearing in front of the full task force.
Okay. In that case, can we use the word could? This is just a suggestion. Could hold hearings, sort of making the person feel that, okay, this could go.
Well, the general language convention, I mean, I don't want to go too deep into this, was to say may or shall.
Okay.
That where there are things that we absolutely do and are required to do, and we do, then we shall do those things. And if there are things that are discretionary that we choose to do but aren't required to do, then we may do those things. And that's both a legal term and a term of art. And I don't think that's confusing. The overall purpose here, and maybe I should reflect on that for a second, is to have a readable document that is usable by petitioners, respondents, the administrator, other city department folks that may need to deal with this, members of the task force, lawyers, others. So just trying to simplify and make it as absolutely readable as possible was kind of the driving goal.
Okay.
So do
Proceed.
we bring county back? And do we say city body going forward or something else?
I'm willing to think about that a little more. I tend to think at this point that city, agency, board, commissioner, department, and then referring to that as either a city agency or a city body is clear enough for the intended audience. But I'm willing to give that another.
That's
thought.
fine. City.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
And then in the second paragraph, I think that's, and to Member Kumar, that's a good example of where the task force administrator will blah, 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 right? It's not so much shall, it's not may, that's the job of the task force administrator, that, if you can't reach an informal resolution, the task force administrator will advise you of your right to file a formal petition with the city attorney, supervisor of records, and or file a formal complaint with the task force.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just wondering if on the very last sentence, it says the document refers to complaints at the task force, if we might want to just say filed with the task force.
Yeah, that
That
works.
is a little unclear in a weird way.
Yeah, that can certainly say, and let me make a note of that. That's a good
Filed
example.
with the task force.
Yeah. Yep. All right. This is how we're making it all better. All right. So that's A. B. This really just, cleans up a little language. It doesn't make major tweaks.
So can I just say on that, on number 2, maybe on carefully review the recommendations below on how to submit your complaint rather than present your complaint.
Okay.
And then you had that question of which or that on 2A, I would just say which. And you had object or subject, I would say object. And then there's a little bit of redundancy in C, where and I think that might be partly my fault. But I think if it says for public records issues, the description should include a copy of the original records request indicating the date of submission, what records were requested, what response was received, and on what dates, and any other pertinent information, and cut out the dates of request and response. So that we just tie it to the fact that we want the original records request with date, and we want responses with their dates.
Okay. Okay.
And everything else looked good to me on that page.
Okay. Yeah, let me, I'll do a little work on that so that we get the dates and it's only in there once.
Yeah.
Okay. But I don't think there was any disagreement about what we were looking for. And we'll come back to that at the end of E in a moment. Okay, so we're through 2C.
Well, depending on what other people think. We're through 2D in my mind, unless I have issues.
Got it. Okay, so page 10, top of page 2 of the procedures. So this was a good example that I kept in. I wasn't big on examples, but I thought this was a good one. Yes.
Member Kumar.
I would say let's refrain from a name, just be like maybe Sergeant X, like maybe have a dash, something to not have a name, because if in case there is a person with that name at the that concerned department, I don't want them to be all concerned why their name is coming up in a public document. That would just be my suggestion. Otherwise, I think it looks okay.
Okay. I'm not aware of a Sergeant John Smith at the police department, and that was in the existing document. So all I did was give him a title.
It's kind of like John Doe, John Smith, which actually I had a client once named Mary Doe. That wasn't her real name. That's how I named her, as because of the nature of her claims. It's
I'm just
Mary Doe.
Yes, like I honestly, like I know it's a generic name, right? Mary Oliver or something like that, but you never know if somebody gets recruited by that name. And it's, you know, and I can tell from experience that we Gen Zs and millennials are very, very like, you know, particular about our name not coming up where it should not be, because all social media has anyway taken over our lives. So that's why I was like, okay, if we could not have a name or just have initials, you know.
Snowflakes.
Yeah. Yeah, we can't deal with it.
All right. If I can find a way around that, I will try to do so, or maybe I'll create a fictitious department or something.
John Q. Smith.
But, yeah, I just didn't want to confuse people by, you know, let me see if I can do that in a way that doesn't add more confusion. If not, I think it's not the worst thing in the world to refer to a Sergeant John Smith at the police department as an example. And it says, for example.
And it's not a bad example, since the police department gets the most complaints and gets the most requests.
And there's a lot of turnover over there. So, you know, I also didn't want to just say Sergeant Smith at the police department, because that could be any number of people. If you have a full name, that's fine. I really didn't want to get into arguing about pronouns or any of that. I just thought, if you've got a name, you know, if you know it. That's all.
If you wanted to be super neutral, you could say John Doe. Then everybody knows.
Clark Kent.
Or Mary Doe, as we just learned.
Yeah, true.
All right. Back to the top of page 2, page 10 in the packet. So that example follows from section D, I think. And then section E, the documentation, I'm not sure if this, oh, I see. You have to compare this to section C above. So for section C, I was just looking for a short description. So here are the dates. Here's a general description of what was requested. In section E, this was a copy of the underlying documentation.
Mm-hmm.
And without putting it in capital letters, I really wanted to say at the end there, duplication is not helpful. You know, these 500-page packets that have the same thing in there twice or 3 times or 10 times isn't helping petitioners, isn't helping respondents, isn't helping us, isn't helping copier machines and scanning. It's just not helpful. So I'm trying to be as brief as possible and say, submit what you need and submit it once, and we will take that. That's what we want.
I mean, I'll just say I did kind of flag that. Like, I don't love it because it seems a little bit scoldy, but and I think that we get the idea across when we talk about, you know, choosing documentation carefully and avoiding supplementary material. But I'm, you know, if people want to keep it in, it's fine. But I kind of flagged it as I don't love the tone of it, even though I also don't love duplication.
Right. Part of it was also intended, although I'm not sure if it comes through this way, that whoever gets the thing in first, that's fine. I feel like if the petitioner submits it, unless the department has a radically different version of it, they can just say in their narrative, you know, petitioner submitted the request on X date. You know, we're not supplying a copy of it because it's already in the packet. That kind of thing.
Yes,
But
I'm
I
fine
didn't want.
either way. I don't think it gets all that across. I mean, it does to us, but it probably doesn't to petitioners and respondents. But whatever people want is fine.
This also seemed like the thing that we could put in, and if people after 6 months or a year, if people think it's too harsh and it's not helping and it's making people feel bad, this is 4 words are pretty easy to remove.
Member Kumar.
I think the word concise can be interpreted in different ways. Unless we give like a certain word limit, I don't think we should use the word concise, because concise for me might mean 1 line, concise for somebody might mean a paragraph or 2. I think I really like the intention here that we need to be clear about what we want. Yeah, I'm getting nitpicky, but I think if we can include like a word limit, I think that would be best. If we can, otherwise I would not like the word concise. It's just it's vague.
The word concise.
Clear and concise description
It's
of
in
what-
2D.
Oh, 2D.
Okay. Again, if I can find another way to say that, I'll try. That was already in the existing text, and that's often used in these kinds of documents.
I was referring to C, not D. I wanted to talk about C, because in C you've said a clear and concise description of what occurred. So in D, I really like the framing of it because it gives a description of what you can include in the description. In C, a clear and concise description of what occurred seems a little vague to me. I don't have a problem with D.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it's in both. All right, again, let me see if I can find another way to say that. But I guess the idea is still for petitioners to say, I asked for records, I didn't get them, or what I got was incomplete, or for the respondent to say, we got the request, but it wasn't real clear, and we sought clarification and none was forthcoming. Okay, we can figure out what to do about those things, but at least then they've stated briefly what's going on. So that's the idea behind clear and concise. And again, if you go to the example on the next page, that's why it's a good example. Records were not provided in a timely fashion. Here's what happened. Okay.
I'll just say I'm okay with the clear and concise language, but if there's a better way, like efficient and elegant,
yeah,
I'm for it.
It is existing, so it's not a change. So maybe, I don't know, just to,
Let it go.
if I'm gonna be just so we can move on, I'll say clear and concise.
I mean, I like efficient and elegant, but I'm not sure that this is the kind of place for that. But
clear, concise, and elegant, but elegant, yes.
Okay.
Tasteful.
Well, all of the above. All right. So moving on past 2C, or sorry, 2E. 2F is really not much change. I did add the word generally because there may be circumstances where we're required to edit or redact if there's a social security number or some other contact info, or for a variety of reasons. But the idea is that generally we're not editing their submissions. We're not in that business.
I actually like this. I really like it.
Okay.
I'm good with everything on this page, except for, as I said, the duplication is not helpful, but I can give that up for the sake of moving on. And 5A, there's just like a little parallelism issue in that last sentence in 5A. We say the respondent, okay, I guess I have to start at the beginning. For complaints against a single member of the SOTF member will be present, or will present.
Present.
Yes, will present their position before the SOTF as respondent and will recuse themselves from participating in the discussion. And then I would just say, and voting on that complaint as a member of the SOTF.
So 5A voting. Okay.
Yeah. And otherwise I personally would approve everything on page 2.
Okay.
And down to the end of B.
Okay.
So
and again, on that whole section 5, that wasn't intending to change any of that. It was just trying to use some fewer words.
Mm-hmm.
If there's no substantive change, then I'm fine.
Okay. So we're through A and B. We can start on C. We can go to the end. There actually might be, we might be able to do everything after C or after D, and then maybe hold C or D for next time. And I'll try to annotate further.
Let's hold C and D, and then it sounds like you're thinking C and D could be held. And so we would do E and E until the end. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that works.
Okay. And then with C and D, it does seem like one thing, there may be several things that need to be done, so it's more processable for us. But one is that I got to figure out where anything that's moved, got to figure out a way that I can track down where it's moved.
Yeah, that's where I'm going to add footnotes.
Okay.
So I think for every sentence that gets removed, it needs a disposition, move to blah, 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 or deleted redundant or whatever. It's got to have some explanation. So that's my takeaway.
Members, you want to move on to E? Is that okay? We're going to go E until probably the end.
Okay, and then see if there's public comment. Okay. So C and D need footnotes. Okay, so on E, this is just about reconsideration. And we've seen several of these requests recently, and actually that was subsequent to this rewrite. The idea here is that it's just trying to reinforce the idea that reconsideration isn't rehearing, that it's got to be about new information, new supporting material, and the explanation of how or why that should change the prior order. If it's not those things, we're really not interested. If it is those things, then absolutely we're interested, and we're interested within 30, and I inserted calendar days, so it's not, so that no one's thinking that this is business days or anything.
Member Stein.
So I just want to say I like that change to calendar days. And I don't have an issue with anything in E except for 3B. The SOTF's prior order shall be considered rescinded. Because I feel like this just came up. That
Right.
Does it have to be rescinded? Why can't we just say like it may be rescinded? Because we may also
Okay.
want it to stand.
Okay, let me see here. There was something at the end. Yeah. If you go to the new 3C there at the bottom of that page, 3C Roman numeral 1 or I, make the original motion without changes. So I think the idea, and I'm open to tweaking this, that when you request reconsideration, yeah, see, if you go to 3A, if the reconsideration request is granted, then it's reopened and scheduled. So at that point, it's not, and I guess we need to sort of think about where it is procedurally. If what you're saying is that you don't want to consider the order rescinded, okay, but it's also not in force at that point. It's sort of suspended. Maybe that's a better word. So what's before the task force after a reconsideration request is granted is either, at the bottom there, it's either making the original motion without changes or making a new or substitute motion with changes.
Member Kumar.
I feel we should, shall seems a little strong here, and I also think rescinded is a strong word. I really like the alternate word Member Pilpul was using, because I feel that if you rescind, like you say we shall rescind the previous order, it's sort of like closing the doorway for us to even reconsider going back to what previously happened. I think we should keep it in the may area, because I don't want to have a blanket rescission of everything that we've done in the past. I think suspension is a good word, and maybe suspended. I think that might be a better wording for me, at least for me.
Member Stein, what do you think?
That's okay. I mean, I guess I just like the idea that we might, if we were here, we might just let the original order stand, or we might change that order. But it seems kind of silly to have to remake the original order. I don't know.
I would go with maybe rescinded. That leaves the ability to figure, that way we're not making an actual decision right now about this, because I kind of agree that to make the decision that we're always going to rescind, and apparently that's what was or has been the rule. But if it has been the rule, I think that it's fine to say may be considered rescinded or maybe rescinded, because it seems like 3 out of 4 of us at least seem to prefer the may. And to me, like, the may kind of includes the shall, because we can always do it if we want to.
Can I just play this out for a second with Member Stein? Let's say that a reconsideration request is granted, okay, for whatever reason, good, bad, or otherwise. So there was a prior order. That prior order is either suspended or set aside, or it's somehow in limbo. We're hearing the matter. I wouldn't say we're hearing the matter again on the merits. We're hearing the matter again on reconsideration to see if there's something that we need to change, right?
Yeah, but in my mind, that order isn't in limbo exactly. It still stands until we change it.
Okay. Because all right. Well, that's helpful, because what I'm thinking is, what happens if upon the reconsideration, no motion passes? If we deadlock 5-5 and there's a member missing, then
to me,
does the original order stand?
Yeah. To me, it does stand. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree. It should stand.
Okay. So even if reconsideration is granted, if the moving party, I guess, doesn't convince 6 members to change it, then the original decision stands.
I would 100% get behind that. I mean, we're just agreeing to like reconsider the question, but we're not saying that we think that we necessarily know the outcome of that. So if the outcome is that nothing changes, then the order stands. So I would even say that 3I, I would just say let the original motion stand rather than make the original motion without changes.
Right. Yeah, I'm just thinking then, where's the burden? Is it? Yeah, I guess that places the burden appropriately, that if you can't get 6 votes to change the thing, then essentially you've got no change, and hearing held, public comment, and no further action taken, original decision stands. Okay, let me work on language that effectuates that. I think I get the idea. Does that work?
Works for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I also think that the word rescission just shouldn't be used here. That's my opinion.
Okay.
It seems to be that would not be the right thing to happen if there is an order that is in place. Yes.
Okay. So maybe rescinded, or just or maybe just strike that. All right. Let me think about that. What
maybe
about the
superseded? I don't know.
That's a nice word. Gee, that's efficient and elegant.
Yeah.
All right. On the time limits here, I think I was suggesting cutting it from 5 to 4, consistent with the other change in the bylaws. I think I'm open to 3 here as well. I mean, this is just on. Let me think about this.
But correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we mentioned the time limits anywhere else in this document for our regular complaints. So are we getting too detailed in giving the time limits?
We may be. I guess, let me think here. Again, let me think some more about time limits. I guess I'm of the general view that our new 4 and 2 rules make sense for a hearing on the merits, whether it's in committee or at the full task force, but a standard 3 minutes makes more sense to me for a reconsideration request or a hearing upon reconsideration. That you shouldn't get as much time as the original hearing to just explain why we're off by a little bit, and you're seeking a modification. Essentially, a
Three and
reconsideration is really more of a modification of the original order.
3 and 3. That would be I agree with you at 3.
Or just 3. Well, okay, 3 here, but no rebuttal.
No rebuttal, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm generally like reconsideration is, we need to keep that door almost shut.
Well, I mean, I think it should be available, but it should be rare, and so far we've been okay with that. If this becomes more of a trend, then we may have to revisit some of this.
Yeah.
All right. Unless there's a different view, then I think we're through with E. And I assume people are okay with the new, whatever it is here, E3E, that if the task force changes the order, or revised OD will be issued. Yeah. And I thought I kept in the language that the original OD, that a revised OD would not be issued if the decision is unchanged.
That seems redundant.
Yeah, I just thought that somehow the history needed to, I don't know. I somehow I thought about the history and whether it's fully reflected if there's an OD and then there's a recon.
I just think I think I probably crossed it out because it
Okay.
just seemed like it doesn't need to be there.
Okay. So the general idea is no new OD if different decision.
Yeah, and otherwise nothing.
And otherwise just silent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. That's E.
I'm good with all of F, I'll just say.
Okay. And I think that was, and there was something elsewhere that got moved into F2. So I think the idea in F is that general stuff gets kept and gets put in the administrator's report later on, but things that are specific to a complaint under F2 get put in the complaint file. Anyway, that's F. G was the administrator's report.
Hold on, Member Kumar.
Yeah, I was just saying that we stop at this page because we did discuss doing only two pages, but we've gone way beyond that. So
We're just going to do G and H, which is about half a page left, and it should be fast. And then maybe 1 or 2 words about that addendum. Go ahead.
All right.
G.
So G is, as I say, general correspondence and the administrator's report. No major change here. And H is just saying, as I said earlier, that where there's a question, the task force chair or, did I include the language about delegate? All right. Anyway, that's it. And as I said earlier, I'm not really crazy about the summary, but I also wasn't ready to nuke it in this pass. So to Member Stein, if there are things that you don't like about the summary, I'm certainly open to making changes to it. I just didn't think that this was the opportunity to eliminate the summary.
Yeah,
Although I'm kind of
I
open to that in the future.
7 and 8. I don't mind the summary because some people are not going to want to read this whole big long thing and they're just going to want to get an idea of what happens.
Right.
I don't personally mind the summary, but 7 and 8 I had a couple issues with. So I don't know if we should talk about them now or we should leave it now, or is this part of H, the summary?
It's after H.
Yeah, so I don't know if we want to do it or not.
Do you have specific language
Let's
proposed for 7 and 8?
Why don't we do, if you wanted to talk about 7 and 8, let's do it now, and then we're going to wrap it up after that.
I'm really good with. And so 7, so last sentence, SOTF may refer a matter to an SOTF committee to monitor. I think it kind of just glosses over that we do. I mean, I know not everything needs to be referred to a committee because in some cases all the documents have been provided, but in cases where they haven't been provided, I feel like we've lost track of a lot of cases and it definitely should be referred to a committee. So I almost want to say like will refer a matter to an SOTF committee to monitor if I don't know, maybe say something like if the documents have not been supplied. And I almost would even want to say we'll refer to the Compliance and Amendments Committee or another committee, but I kind of want to highlight that I feel like compliance is the committee that's supposed to look at whether our orders are being complied with. And that's probably where it should go. But then we can also make, we could also say or another committee, but I don't feel like these should be randomly assigned to different committees. I feel like there should be a committee that has a handle and can start to really, develop processes for tracking what's been complied with or not complied with. So that was my issue with 7. And then 8, it says the maker of a motion may vote against their own motion. That's true, but I think under Robert's rules, I don't, did I change it to, like, what did you have, Member Pilpel? Because I think I might have crossed out cannot speak against it because I think under Robert's rules.
I think I may have had that. I'm happy to just lose that entire sentence. I'm not sure how that's helping us.
Yeah, I would lose it.
Okay.
Then I'm happy with 8. So it's just 7, but I'm not sure, like, it might be too substantive to start introducing.
There is another place where we buy into Robert's rules. So it seems to me that if the issue comes up, then somebody can cite Robert's rules. And I don't even know if it's a yes or no under Robert's rules.
I think it's at the end of the bylaws where we incorporate Robert's rules unless they're in conflict.
I'll just note that I'm in agreement with Member Pilpel that the summary, I think that the summary is not, I would vote against having a summary. It seems to me that it's an invitation to like reading a version that is going to, you're basically going to take an invitation to skip over some of the detail that we put into our rules. But that's just my thought, and it's not a big deal to me. I am in agreement on that. I think we kind of ran through that before, and we may have proposed something before. So I don't think we should necessarily take it out right now.
Yeah, fair enough. On item 7, just for a quick moment, I didn't want to go into more detail about monitoring here. I think that's covered in D. And I think the reason I didn't want to specify compliance and amendments is traditionally we've sent more records follow-up issues to compliance and amendments, and we've often sent meeting related follow-up issues to EOT because that seemed to be less of a document production issue and more of a change in practice. And I wanted to just leave open that possibility.
I'm fine with that. I'll say I I just would love to see it reflected that if there's an order that requires that, something happen, something change, or something be received,
Right.
it should definitely go to a committee. It shouldn't be a may, it should be a will.
Okay. Where? Yeah.
I don't
Again,
have the exact language, but if we're, that might be too much of a tweak. I'm not
Lem-
going to stand on that ground. I'm not going to, take an arrow on that ground, but that's just where I think things need to go.
let me see how that plays out in the new subsection D about compliance, and then if there's a way to extract or distill that into a sentence here for the summary, because it's
Yeah.
really how we handle it in D with compliance.
I'm with Member Stein on to definitely be pushing to have everything go into, and then I think that number 9 should be eliminated because it's stated in the ordinance when things are going to get referred to these other bodies, supervisors, DA. And I don't think we should be either just copying what the ordinance says, or, maybe misstating what the obligations are. I just think may refer kind of like it if anything, we just would say it's the ordinance itself talks about when things are going to be referred. At most, I would do that.
Yeah, I think that cuts different ways. Because people may not find that easily in the ordinance, and so I on the one hand, I wanted to include that. On the other hand, maybe this is also a place where we can say something like, in the alternative, the task force can send, a strongly worded letter or memo to other actors in the city. So it's not just, was there a violation or not? And, that's the end of it. But if there's some policy change that we can recommend or something to call to someone's attention, then we might do that as well. So that it gives a slightly larger sense of optional remedies.
Why would this be in the summary?
Maybe it shouldn't be. Okay. Fair enough.
Was it in the body of the anywhere in the body? It doesn't look like it was anywhere in the body. It just somehow like kind of got lumped into the summary, which is, if it's not in the full document above, it shouldn't be in the summary. I'll put it that way.
It is in section D.
Is it?
4.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in D4.
We might say something in that sentence. I might, even say that the word might would be more applicable, because may seems like we're saying allow, like we're allowed to do it, or we might choose to do it. It kind of has a different import to me than might. Or we could say can, or, I mean, in this situation, I just don't know exactly how we should say it here. But on the other hand, think about it. I'll just put it that way. Yeah.
Okay.
Can was in there before.
Can was in there. Okay. I think can is better than may. Are they actually, wait a minute, I mean, I guess that would seem to mean that we can always refer things, and that's not true. I mean, I guess in a way we can do anything we want, but we are told by the ordinance specific times when we are told to refer things out. I don't know if that means that we could just do those things anytime we want if there's actually specific direction of certain times that we are to do such things. This is kind of where, like, I just think that when we try to paraphrase what our obligations and rights are, such as in this, I think that it kind of it's inaccurate potentially, and it just might be confusing, and it cause people to think that we ought to be doing that when actually we may not want to be doing that.
Yeah, I hear all that you're saying. I guess this is another one where it cuts different ways. On the one hand, I didn't really want to ignore where we've got a mandatory referral, but on the other hand, I didn't want to create false hope that if someone if a violation is found at the full task force and that we refer it to the DA or the Attorney General, that's magically going to, involve automatic enforcement, which, it isn't. So I was trying to skate a line there somehow.
Okay.
Yeah. But it is true that it specifically says in the ordinance, the task force shall make referrals to a municipal office with enforcement power.
Yeah, I think that if it says shall and we're saying we may, that just doesn't make any sense to me, because there's been, like a practice of basically violating the law. And that's what we do, because we don't follow that shall language. So in addition to not complying with the law, I don't think we should be putting it into our rules that we decided we don't want to comply with the law. Why would, that just doesn't, I'm not okay with having something that's optional when we're actually supposed to be doing it in every case.
And I'll say I 100% agree with that. And I feel like even if all we're doing is forwarding our orders to the DA and they're dumping it in the trash, I think it's really important to forward it, because that's what the law says. And they're not even going to know that all these orders are not being followed if there's no record of it, right? And I don't think anything gets anywhere if we just say, oh, they don't want to enforce it, so we're not going to do it. We should still do our part, because I think that can add some leverage and add some weight to what should be happening.
So to the suggestion of efficient and elegant, maybe the best language here is something like the task force shall refer matters as required under the law, and maybe, spell that out, and may send additional targeted letters as the task force deems appropriate. Something like that.
That's fine.
That we're doing what we have to do, but we might also go above and beyond if we think it'll be a good use of everyone's time.
Of course, then we're just saying something that is already said elsewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, we shall comply with the law. To me, like, why do we have to say we shall comply with the law?
Yeah.
Well, the law says that departments shall comply, and we spend a lot of time talking about whether they did or didn't. So, yeah.
But why would we put in our complaint procedures that we promise to comply with the law? It seems.
Well, it's a summary of the
process
procedures. So in case someone thinks at the end that they just get an order and that's the end of it, no, we send it on somewhere if we're required to.
If required, or if, yeah, maybe the version you had about where required, we will, and then otherwise, there may be other situations where we will anyways, where we're allowed to, permitted to, etc. I think I saw a hand here. Member Kumar.
I just want to say that the frustration with the DA's office has also come up in the task force. And while I understand it, I agree that I agree with Member Stein that we should keep sending it to them. And obviously, if we don't hear back and the communications keep piling up, then obviously we should have a channel to hold the DA's office I mean, we can't hold them accountable, but try to hold them accountable. But yeah, we should definitely keep sending everything to the DA's office.
That's all I had for tonight. I will follow up with these tweaks and footnotes and all that. I note that there are 4 attendees online, and perhaps there's some public comment. I'm very interested in what members of the public have to say, good, bad, or otherwise.
Okay.
I think they can feel free to refer to their district supervisor if they'd like.
Members, anything further?
Do we need to make a motion, or?
Why don't we take public comment first?
Yeah, we would, but I'm just asking, how is this agendized? Are we going to be making a motion after the public comment? Or are we just going to let it sit and then make one motion at the end when we have everything ready to go?
Let's say public comment, and then someone may want to make a motion.
Yeah, and it may just be to continue with edits to come and further clarification with our intent to take up sections C and D next time.
Okay.
Public comment, please.
Anyone wishing to make public comment on item 6, please raise your hand in the app or press *3. We have one hand raised. Mr. Wilson, do you wish to make public comment on item 6?
Yes.
All right. Your 3 minutes begins now.
Thank you. I just wanted to give some feedback on the user end of this. So one thing that I would like to see, and again, I appreciate your crafting this overhaul and everything like that. So, but from a user, when I submit a complaint, which is very rarely, of course, I'm not getting any like feedback on that. In other words, whenever you submit a form online, a good website, number one, it'll say on the screen your request has been submitted. It'll even maybe give you a little reference number. It's part of the website coding or whatever. A really good website does that, and it will send you an email confirmation. Okay, yes, we are in receipt of your submission. Here's your tracking number, some other stuff on that email. And then, if the responsibility falls on poor Ms. Peterson to, really totally, she's on the hook for that. And I believe that the other part is she needs an assistant maybe. But that aspect, it doesn't exist as long as I've been part of this system and everything. And I would like to see that. So there's that. Secondly, with this sort of, it's really getting lost in the weeds, but you want to follow through and have a paper copy or a very solid copy, even maybe a public timeline of what you've done. You've referred it to the DA. Yeah, like obviously they're throwing that in the can, especially if it's public corruption tainted. And you're like, well, we sent it over to them, and we're telling the public we sent it over to them. And so when you go to the state body about something, you can say, well, I pursued this at the city local level, because they'll ask you that. Well, did you do that? And you say, yes, I did. And here's the proof of it. And yeah, it stopped. Like you're tracking a package, it stopped at the DA's office, and we never heard from it again. And then so that's the place to go. Hey, DA's office, what happened with this one? And so I like that kind of a tracking, so to speak, aspect of it.
30 seconds.
So yeah, but great. It was interesting listening to you. People just sort of, like I say, craft this new SO administration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any motions?
Checking for public comment. One moment, please.
Yes.
We have no one in the room, no one in the queue.
Member Stein.
I would move that we approve the sections that we discussed tonight to be included in a final draft that, once it's fully approved, will be sent to the full task force. And those sections are the introduction. The complaint procedure section are the introduction, section A, B, E, F,
Just
G,
a moment, please. Slow down. Section
A, B, E, F, G, H, and the addendum.
Sections A through H and the addendum.
Yeah. No, well, it's not C and D, so A, B, E, F, G, H.
A, B, E, F, G, H,
Mhm.
and the addendum.
Second.
And I have more work to do on it, so that's fine.
Second.
Seconded by Chair Schmidt. Taking the vote on item 6, Vice Chair Stein.
Aye.
Vice Chair Stein, aye. Chair Schmidt.
Aye.
Chair Schmidt, aye. Member Sugarman, absent. Member Kumar.
Aye.
Member Kumar, aye. Oops. 3 ayes, 1 absent, motion passes. Item number 7, hearing regarding advancing Sunshine Ordinance Task Force Section 67.30 roles.
Thank you for the correction on that. I don't know if I think we have anything that's really going forward right now on this. So maybe we can just pass until next time.
No action taken. Item 7. Item 8, announcements, comments, questions, and future agenda items by members of the Complaint Committee.
I just have one thing, which is I just heard from our administrator that everyone, just about everyone, all the members are in a holdover status. And apparently there's a new law that says that you can only be in holdover status for 60 days. And so for anyone in holdover status, that's not everyone, that's just that 60 days would run on Friday. So if that rule is retroactive, then it, like our administrator was saying, it might mean that the whole, pretty much the whole task force loses quorum until something happens, like the board approves people or ticks them and gives them another term, kind of thing. So just be aware that that's happening.
Can I just ask, is this because the Rules Committee hasn't gotten to their reappointments, or what is it?
It's a combination of the Rules Committee hasn't gotten, and I guess it's in this new law that was passed. Is it the law that was passed about the consolidation of or the elimination of certain task forces and commissions?
It was part of the action regarding the streamlining task.
Streamlining. Apparently, there's a provision that says now any commission holdovers are out after 60 days, which is a change.
And the application of that is being, we have asked the city attorney's office for an interpretation of how that statement applies.
And so
What's weird about that, though, is that probably everybody has put in an application. It's not that we're not reapplying and we're just holdovers.
Yeah. I think that technically, if after April 27, if the Board of Supervisors hasn't gotten around to it, then someone's in technically a holdover status until the Board of Supervisors puts them forward for a couple, for a term. But they're nobody's in term right now, I believe. And so, yeah, the board's gonna probably have a whole bunch of folks saying, hey, you don't, there's no commissions now because you haven't been doing your job of pushing people through the process. And they're very busy on other things. So I just wanted to put that out there. Just, you might hear something about that. I got nothing else.
All right. Public comment?
I don't think
No.
we need public comment on that, no.
Item 9, adjournment.
Okay, move to adjourn.
The complaint committee is adjourned at 9:03. Microphones are off.
I'm sorry, I had a comment on that last item.
Is that a public commenter who's interjecting?
It's
Member Pilpel.
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry, Member Pilpel, you were still a panelist. I didn't see your hand. We have one public comment.
On that question of holdover status, I would refer to Charter Section 4.101.5, which generally had already provided that holdovers only serve for 60 days, but that only applied to charter boards and commissions. And I'm trying to look up very quickly the board ordinance that was recently passed and whether that actually covers us. I don't have.
The matter has. I'll wait.
That's a good distinction. That is a really good distinction, and that could eliminate a lot of confusion here.
Was that actually file 260217? Because that.
Yes.
Okay, so that was finally enacted on May 29th, so it wouldn't take effect until the end of June at the earliest. And I'm trying to find the section in there that might apply to us if it does. Anyway, I think this just needs some clarity from the city attorney as to its application to us. And I'll just leave it at that right now. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. Adjourned at 9:05. Microphones are off.